A very, very good morning to you. How is your Wednesday coming along? We sure hope that you are enjoying the show so far. Thank you so much for keeping it Y254 this and every other weekday. Of course, you do know how we do from 7 a.m. till 10 a.m. We do have the rest of the Y in the Morning crew, as well as Hello Day from 9 a.m. till 10 a.m. My name is Shiko Kaitani, taking over from Kalamival Hilda Wadidi, and of course, the man himself, Mr. Barry Moses. That SMS number is 22162. Please begin your text message with the YM254 if you want to interact with us today. And if you prefer to get in touch with us through our social media platforms, well, karibu sana. We are YM254 TV on Instagram as well as Facebook, and not to mention Y254 channel on Twitter. This being Wednesday, well, you do know how we do. It's all about health matters and of course wellness. And we love to get into such discussions so that you can know how to take care of your mind. Of course, you know, your physical health, not to mention emotionally in all different aspects. And so today we get into another discussion, and trust me, this one's gonna be helpful. Now, it has been proven that adolescents who have access to sexual and reproductive health information and services are more likely to stay in school, giving them better opportunities. But the question here is, are youth woke, so to speak, when it comes to matters of safe sex? And so today we are talking about sex and whose role it is to educate our youth about the process and family planning methods. And so today I would like to welcome for the very first time to Y254 Nancy Mwige, who is an independent consultant, as well as Kwame Owino, who is the CEO of Institute of Economic Affairs. Karibuni sana. We're really happy to have you. So maybe Nancy, how about we start off with you? When we're talking about, let's talk about sex and family planning. Do you believe that parents today have actually failed in actually doing this with their children?
Thank you very much. I think we need to be able to examine it from a perspective of, we live in Nairobi, and apart from just Nairobi, we have other 46 counties. So we have 47 counties. So we're not at the same level. And so if take, for instance, my own example, I would say, I think I learned sex from my peers than my parents. And so in that case, we need to be able to question, why is it that I learned sex from my peers and not my parents? And how sex was talked about from the family perspective. And so I think there's a cultural aspect towards that particular phenomena, and it's sort of in a way a taboo subject within the family setup. But increasingly, because of the statistics that is coming before us in terms of HIV prevalences, in terms of even the first debut for young people and what that means, I think parents are getting to the position whereby they're realizing if they don't talk about sex from the family setup, then the likelihood of their children learning about sex from their peers or from the internet would be detrimental.
And you would think right now it would even be easier because kids today have, you know, access to all this stuff, but yet parents still find it a bit difficult to bring up the discussion. What do you think, Kwame?
Well, I'm not a parent, so I can't say. But what I know is what I know primarily. I mean, the responsibility for making sure that our children have these skills to deal with the stuff that they deal with as teenagers and as young adults should come first from the family. Partly because every family has its own preferences for what kind of values its children should hold. What we've done instead is that we think that these are things that should be taught in schools. And my view is that not all families think the same way about what choices their children should take. So if you have very strong views about that, then obviously that responsibility should not be government. It should principally lie with the parents, and parents have to supplement that, whether it's through their religious education and everything else. But it squarely falls to parents to make sure that their children understand the right things and make the choices that are consistent with the values that they would like to espouse.
Okay, all right, listen to this. While launching the National Adolescent Sexual and Reproductive Health Policy in 2015, former Health Cabinet Secretary James Macharia said his ministry and that of Education are working to empower young people with appropriate information and skills to help them make informed choices about their sexuality. Nancy, what do you think? Is sex education well implemented? Is it being implemented as we speak in schools today?
I think there's a difference between what you put in and also the outcome. So in terms of the input, obviously there's a curriculum, there's also efforts being put in terms of teaching young people about sexuality, and it also happened during our generation, because I remember when we got to class 6, we had to learn about the difference between a male and a female and what that meant. But when you look at the outcomes that are coming out of that, and when I'm talking about outcomes, I'm also looking at the statistics that are out there in terms of how young people are engaging in sex. It speaks a different it's a different picture altogether. And so the question is, why is it that there's a disconnect if young people are learning about sex in school and perhaps at home? So why is it that there's that disconnect in terms of what we are seeing? And especially, like, for instance, if you look at the KDHS of 2009, you sort of which we published under the Youth Fact Book, which was done by Institute of Economic Affairs, the debut for young men was at before the age of 15 was at 22%, yet for young women the same age it was at 22%, but by the age of 18 the young girls were at 47%, yet and the men were at around 55%. And so there's sort of that disconnect altogether.
All right, Kwame, in schools they would tend to actually teach more about the reproductive system, right? And probably leave out the sex talk. Maybe we can take it a little bit back and hear your definition of what sex education really is, right down to even probably what the curriculum should entail if it is a class, and how soon or how young or how old should the students be to actually be learning about sex ed?
I think that's I mean, this might be controversial, but the point is, all the responsibility that schools, through a curriculum that is approved by government, should teach us is the reproductive functions related to the fact of our biology. Now, how we manage relationships with people of the opposite sex is the function of parents and the cultural settings in which people are. We are trying to make schools do that, and they're doing a bad job, because that's not what a school should do. Even the questions about age. So for instance, it's so varied, because there are societies in this country which allow girls to be married much younger, and they say that's our culture. Others don't think the same. So you can't then impose a single standard and ask government to do that. We have to put parents on the spearhead and tell them this is your responsibility. It cannot be delegated to schools. Why? Because a school and a school teacher, for instance, may have totally different views about how this should be taught. So if parents have strong views about what kind of relationships their children should have, it is upon them to create that instruction and monitor the child. That's what parenting is. And there's a book that says that parenting isn't for cowards. So this idea of trying to subcontract
I like that, subcontract.
Subcontract adolescent and youth education regarding these very sensitive emotional facts to schools is because parents are cowards. They don't want to deal with that and actually have to monitor that. If I think it is inappropriate for my daughter or son to be out of the house at 9 p.m., then it's my responsibility. It should not be the responsibility of a school. So I won't give you a clear-cut answer about what ages and all that are. I mean, the biology tells you, of course, the earlier children start to engage in this, it is dangerous for their health. And obviously even for their emotional health as well. And that's where parenting comes in. So what I think we should rearm is the idea for parents that, look, take your responsibility seriously. Maybe they don't. I mean, kids don't come with a manual, but that's why parents coming together and getting the kind. So as we are talking about educating youth, maybe parents need that education just as much to supplement what is provided.
I really do like that. Nancy, maybe you can talk to us a little bit about what is the situation on the ground. And for a lot of young people, media has become the source of learning. That's our learning tool, I mean, there's even arguments about whether you actually log onto a porn site or you watching pornography can be for pleasure or for learning, because it's actually used as a learning tool by many, especially our male counterparts. And so what do you have to say to young people who use, for example, pornography or film or entertainment, different sources of entertainment, to actually learn about sex?
First of all, I think we also have to take into cognizance that...
I'm going to ask you to use your microphone. First
of all, we have to take into cognizance that the context under which currently the millennials currently live in.
Yeah.
They're very interconnected. They're connected to social media. They're tech savvy.
Yeah.
And they're exposed to many things. And let's say, for instance, when you look at music, you have the Cardi B's.
Yeah.
You have, you know, all this kind of music, the videos, Instagram, Snapchat, and they're connecting to people not just in Kenya alone. They're also connecting to people abroad in Canada, in the US, and they're learning many things on their own as well. And so for you to be able to expose these children in such a way that they're able to develop themselves and understand how to make right choices, I think it has to begin from the family setup, where you're able to inculcate the right values to your to the young people, so that when they go outside in the outside world, they're able to make the right choices. Because if you look at what's currently happening, even like in terms of like the porn sites and all this particular exposure, I think not everybody gets to a porn site. And so the question is, why is it that there are people who get into porn sites and others who don't get into that? Obviously, there hasn't been I don't know whether there's been a research being done about that, but if you're able to inculcate the right values to these young people, I'm pretty sure they'll have the right tools to be able to make those key decisions.
What do you think about the idea of, as opposed to probably having a qualified teacher, so to speak, in classrooms or whatever, teaching the youth, what about the use of different aids, like, you know, video clips, documentaries? Do you think that's an easier way to just graduate into this sex education discussion in schools?
I think the discussion, young people tend to be very creative, but they also know when you're using too many words to say things that could be illustrated in a different way. So my view is that, yes, I think teachers who handle teenage education obviously have to use all these tools, and to know as well that in addition to what you tell them, they may go out there to actually confirm whether what you're telling them is right or not. So it's we have to accept that all forms of information are out there, and one of the ways to confront them is actually to ask them to develop some kind of sensors for what doesn't look right, and to ask for advice if they see. So they must have confidence to say, look, come before a teacher, not feel that they'll be judged for saying, look, I found this thing and it concerned me, or I am unsure about what to think about it. Can it be discussed? So whether with a teacher or a parent, that should be the avenue. But I don't think that there are straight ways of simply saying, look, let's use text, chalk and board, and that will be enough for them, because they're going to find other means to supplement that information.
Okay.